Danny, this isn't something that needs to affect us. Not in any real or meaningful way. It's something completely outside of us. You're probably wondering why my bride of 12 years just made that statement to me just now. 30 minutes earlier, I had walked out of my office building, where I work as an accountant for a medium-sized accounting firm, to walk a couple of blocks to the diner I frequented a couple of times a week to grab a quick lunch. Across the street from my work, they were building a new 8-story office building. There was a food truck there with a long line of construction workers waiting to order. Seeing the long line, I assumed the food must be good, so I decided to get something from the food truck instead of the diner. That one impulsive decision snowballed into a dramatic change in the path my life was on. I grabbed a beef burrito from the food truck and once again made an impetuous and unwise decision for them to make it spicy. Apparently, my stomach wasn't built to handle the same spicy food as construction workers. To make a long story short, within minutes the burrito felt uncomfortably hot in my stomach, which made me rush home to the privacy of my bathroom for what I knew would be a long and unpleasant experience. This was to be the second mistake of my afternoon, but there were several more to follow. Parking my car haphazardly on the street, I rushed around the strange car in my driveway and hastily went up the stairs to use the bathroom attached to our bedroom. Running halfway into the bedroom, I was stopped short with the sight of my wife with a man. It was rather ironic that when she told me it's something completely outside of us, he was still sitting there. My mouth wide open, I continued to stare at them in shock. The shock must have started to wear off, because my bowels started screaming at me once again. I rushed to the bathroom, slamming the door behind me, and barely made it to the toilet before all hell broke loose. As he was putting on his shirt, Shelley walked past me over to him. She wrapped her arms around his waist, leaned into him, and reached up on her toes to give him a hug. While she was looking up at him, he was looking sideways into my eyes with a smirk on his face. Finally, she backed away and went to his left side, keeping her arm around his waist. Now they were both facing me. He put his arm over her shoulder, and his hand casually rested on her arm. Shelley looked up at him and giggled, "Tom, you're so mischievous." She put her own palm on top of his hand and playfully squeezed it. Looking at me, Shelley's tone changed to a slightly more serious one. "Tom, I need to talk to Danny. I'll call you later, okay?" Tom looked slightly down at her, smiled, and nodded. He then turned to face me once again, with the same smirk on his face. Both his facial expression and body posture seemed to challenge me to make a verbal objection or take a go at him. He had a significant height and weight advantage over me. We both knew who would come out on top in that confrontation. I'm ashamed to say that I was the first to break eye contact and look away. He chuckled, and before leaving the bedroom, he walked towards me, purposely bumping into me as he passed. He turned around before exiting the bedroom. "Babe, why don't you pack up some stuff and come and stay with me like we always talked about?" "Tom, please go. I promise we'll talk later, okay?" Okay, I'll wait for your call, babe. If you have any trouble, let me know and I'll be right back. Don't forget about Saturday. But now that he knows, just spend the whole weekend with me." Shelley was looking directly into my eyes as she replied, "Tom, we'll definitely get together at some point. I'm not sure about spending the whole weekend together yet, though. I'll let you know. But you don't have to worry about Danny here. He's as gentle as a kitten and as loyal and loving as a well-trained little puppy." Tom laughed. "You've told me over and over again about how small he is." Shelley chuckled. But for the first time, I thought I saw her blush. "Tom, please, you're not helping. Please go now and let me talk to my husband and help him understand how things are going to be from now on. Please go now, okay?" Okay. With that, Tom turned and finally left. My wife was not only cheating on me, but she showed no remorse, no shame, and no apology. And she was making plans with her lover right in front of me. Quite a situation for a husband to walk into. My only hope was that my food poisoning had affected my brain and I was imagining all of this. Interestingly, once her lover left the room, Shelley thought it was finally the right time to cover herself. She and I stared at each other intently when I heard the front door close, hopefully Tom leaving. Neither one of us said anything. Me, because my brain still couldn't process the scene one had witnessed. Knowing her, she was waiting for me to give in and accept this situation. Over the years, I had always given in to Shelley. She always got her way. I was always too weak when it came to her. After several minutes of staring each other down, I was the first to break once again. "How long?" She gave me a little smirk and dismissively said, "How long does it matter, honey? You're asking the wrong question." "Oh, and what is the right question? Are you leaving me? How does this affect us?" Do I love him? Do I not love you anymore? It looks like you're going to be asking the right questions and providing all the answers too. Shelley. Okay, I'll play along. Are you leaving me? No, honey. I have no intention of leaving you if you understand and don't overreact to this. What you saw has nothing to do with us. It's something completely separate. It's something I also need, not instead of us. The rehearsed way Shelley said this, and the fact that this was pretty much a reiteration of what she said when I first caught them, made me realize that she had prepared this speech. Maybe she had anticipated being caught, or had planned on talking to me about this at some point. He said you guys planned on moving in together. How do you plan on moving in with him without leaving me? Shelley waved her hand dismissively. Danny, forget about all that. He keeps talking about us moving in together, not me. He's my main man when it comes to romance, but you're my main man in every other way. So forget about what he said. I'm not leaving you, and he and I are not moving in together. I need you both, not one over the other, okay? Shelley finished with an exasperated sigh, as if frustrated with having to explain herself repeatedly to two childish and stubborn individuals. Okay, you're not planning on leaving me. That would mean that you're leaving him. Shelley shook her head with a frown on her face. Honey, you're not paying attention. I just told you that this has nothing to do with us. That I need this. You heard me promise Tom that we'll be getting together this weekend. Just because I don't want to move in with him doesn't mean I don't want him. What made you think I have any intention of breaking things off with him? That food truck must have been a portal to some parallel universe. This can't be the same woman I've known for nearly 20 years and been married to for 12. Was she always this irrational, or has something changed? Stop being silly, Danny. I'm not leaving you and I'm not breaking up with Tom. The sooner you accept that, the better it will be for everyone. So I guess I was the problem, for not accepting sharing my wife. We weren't getting anywhere fast here. Shelley, again, how long and more importantly, why? Honey, I already explained to you that the length of time doesn't matter. How does knowing that help you understand and accept the situation? And I've already told you why. Shelley, who said anything about me accepting and understanding all of this. And no, you haven't given me a reason yet. First of all, please don't raise your voice at me, Danny. I'm trying my best to explain everything patiently. So don't get snippy with me. Do you understand? And yes, I have given you a reason. I just didn't go into too much detail to spare your feelings and ego. I told you that it's something I need. Then why don't you just leave and go be with him? Danny, calm down. This isn't getting us anywhere. I won't deal with you until you get over this. You need to put yourself aside and understand that nothing has changed between us. I've been seeing Tom for almost 2 years. You didn't know about it, and it didn't bother us. Now that it's out in the open, I might see him a bit more, maybe even spend a weekend together here and there. We've wanted to do that for a while, but to spare your feelings, we've kept it a secret. Enough of that. Shelley finished her speech, exasperated at all the times my presence had hindered their expression of desire. She softened her tone and changed her approach. But baby, this will give you more time to focus on your own hobbies. You'll see that it's good for us. This won't harm our relationship unless you make it. I saw Shelley in a new light for the first time since we met in 7th grade. All these years, I had created a story in my mind about who she was. But now, I was realizing that the story was far from the reality. In a calmer voice, I asked Shelley again, if I'm so boring, why are you with me instead of going with him? He seems to want a serious relationship with you. Why are you here? Honey, Tom has his strengths, like being fun and very confident in bed. You have your strengths too. You're very loving, always putting me first, and a great provider. Your job is solid, and my girlfriends envy it. You excel in other areas, just like Tom does in his own. I want both of you. I don't want to choose between you. Can you understand that? What does he do? Shelley mumbled something quickly, so I asked her to repeat it. He's a delivery guy. Ah, I'm starting to see the bigger picture now. She smiled, hoping that I finally understood. Who was this woman? I walked into the closet, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing my things. What do you think you're doing, Danny? What does it look like? Since you won't leave, I'm leaving. If you think I'm going to let you spend my money and go off with him, you're out of your mind. Have you lost your mind, or were you always this naive? I'm leaving, I'm seeing a lawyer, and divorcing you. You're not going anywhere, Danny. And nobody is getting a divorce. If you dare try, I'll take everything from you and leave you with nothing. You'll be paying me alimony for the rest of your life, while I'll still be with Tom. You won't get anything. How is that good for you? My anger and emotions were overwhelming. Why are the ignorant so sure of what they think they know? Shelley, you forget that I'm a CPA. I've dealt with many clients going through a divorce and seen the financial impact. You work part-time, so I'll have to pay alimony for a couple of years, but the judge will tell you to find a full-time job. We'll split our assets, but that's not much since you spend money like it's water. After that, you'll be stuck with the little money you make and what your lover brings home. So don't make threats about things you know nothing about. Go to hell. I finished packing and left the house. I found a room at an extended stay motel. I was angry and emotionally drained, reflecting on what went wrong. Making a one-year plan the next day, I called in sick. My stomach was better, but my soul felt sick. Fortunately, it was a Friday, and the weekend was ahead of me. Another stroke of luck was that it was October, the slowest time of year for me after the tax extension season. By December, we would start gearing up for the new tax season, which would be the busiest time in my work. I found a small bar near the motel where I was staying. I felt incredibly sorry for myself. The more I drank, the more I pictured Shelley and her lover. It felt like they were mocking me while they continued their activities. I didn't need a wild imagination to picture it. It was uncomfortably close to reality. I felt like a complete failure with nothing to offer the world, especially to a woman. Shelley had told me I was inadequate in bed, and that translated to feeling inadequate as a person. The bartender, Pat, listened patiently to my story at first, which was comforting. However, his advice took a turn and became unhelpful. He said I would never find another woman like Shelley again, and even if I did, she would treat me the same way. So, I might as well crawl back to Shelley, beg for her forgiveness, and hope she takes me back. Pat shared his own story. Apparently, he had a background in psychology but preferred being a bartender. He believed in using his psychology knowledge with his customers. He told me that he too had been cheated on by his wife, but he wasn't as lucky as me. His wife divorced him to be with her lover and told him to leave their home. According to him, I was lucky that Shelley still wanted me. I was ungrateful for not appreciating it and should return to Shelley, beg for her forgiveness. Pat was trying to help, but not in the way he intended. Instead of feeling sorry for myself, his words made me angry. This guy was pathetic. He had experienced a major trauma in his life, and his solution was to accept and incorporate it into his lifestyle. It reminded me of a woman who has been abused and is told she doesn't deserve any better. His advice was no different from someone advising a battered spouse to embrace and enjoy the abuse. It was about accepting a victim mentality instead of having the courage to fight back. That wasn't the life I wanted. And so his words helped me transition from feeling sorry for myself to feeling angry. If my only choices were between a life of loneliness on my own and a life of betrayal, both emotionally and physically, I would choose a life of loneliness where at least I can keep my head up high and look myself in the mirror without feeling sick. I had a lot to think about, and the answer was not going to come from a bottle, and it certainly was not going to come from Pat. I realized the answers had to come from inside of me. I had to first figure out how I got here, and then figure out the future I wanted and how I can get there. How I got here the first time I saw Shelley was in the second period of the first day of the 7th grade, and it was infatuation at first sight. She had a bubbly, outgoing personality compared to my shy, introverted one. She was also very pretty, and I couldn't help but notice the changes happening to her teenage body, like the small curves that were beginning to show. She would grow up to have a nice figure, and she was maturing faster than the other girls. I was too shy to pursue Shelley, but we lived on the same street. We often found ourselves walking home from school on the same path. We never walked together or spoke more than a couple of words in class every now and then. One day, midway through the 8th grade, I was walking about 20 to 30 feet behind her on our way home when a car drove into the driveway of the house just ahead of Shelley. He stopped short, blocking the sidewalk in front of her. I saw a middle-aged man talking to her through the passenger window. She kept shaking her head no to whatever he was saying. Then, as she went around the back of the car to continue walking home, the man opened the passenger door wide, jumped out and grabbed Shelley. He started pushing her in through the driver's side door towards the front passenger seat. Shelley was screaming and resisting the best she could, but with his overpowering size and strength, he was easily winning the battle. By this time, I was almost up to the car myself. I dropped my lunchbox and backpack and ran around the car. I repeatedly hit the man in the back, screaming at him to let her go. He swung back, punching me in the face, which knocked me to the ground. I was hurting and shook up, but I grabbed onto his right ankle and wrapped my arms around it, tucking it between my shoulder and neck. I was trying my best to keep him from getting into the car behind Shelly, and I yelled out, "Run, Shelly, run." He pivoted his body fully around, pulled his left leg back, and kicked me in my upper body with his left foot. He achieved his goal of forcing my arms to let go of his leg. But I had achieved my goal as well. Shelly had taken advantage of his momentary distraction and had jumped out of the car to make her escape. By this point, people were starting to come out of their houses wondering what all the commotion was about. With the prize lost and concerned neighbors coming out of their houses, he jumped into his car, backed up, and sped away. An alert neighbor had been observant enough to memorize his license plate number. A short time later, he was captured. The police were able to link him to 6 abductions, assaults, and murders of young girls. Last I heard, he was still awaiting his execution. I didn't go to school the next few days. I had a busted nose and bruised ribs. The emergency room patched up and bandaged my nose and ribs. A couple of evenings after the incident, there was a knock on the front door of the apartment my mom and I shared. I opened it to find Shelly standing there with a tall woman and a big man, who I found out later were her parents, standing right behind her. To make a long story short, they were there to thank me for what I had done. Her mother gave me a long, tight hug with a tear running down her face. Her father shook my hand, telling me what a stand-up young man I was. He then pulled me in for a tight hug of his own, enveloping me in his large frame. After that day, Shelly and I walked to and from school together. Even though she lived further away from school, I would walk over to her home every morning, and we'd walk to school together. And then I would return her back to her front door every afternoon. But once we got to school, we went our separate ways and hung out in 2 different groups. Shelly was popular and hung out with the cool kids. I was more focused on academics and hung out with fellow geeks. I wasn't necessarily awkward or weird looking. I was just more interested in the intellectual side of things. I was raised by a single mother who worked hard every day to support us. It was very important for her that I excel and have a successful future. So I took school and getting good grades extremely seriously. Plus, I wasn't particularly athletic. Shelly was drawn to the athletic types. Through junior high school and high school, I watched Shelly date one athlete after another. I should have known from back then that I wasn't her type, but it didn't keep me from desperately wanting her. We hung out together after school occasionally and even shared a few hugs. But I wasn't the one she chose to have a deeper connection with, and I never got anywhere past first base throughout high school. However, I was the one she would confide in about the athletes she dated. How they were all self-absorbed, and that they were only interested in themselves in sports. Only if they were more receptive like me, and that they listened to her like I did. How she wished that they were more like me. But when I would ask her the obvious, why doesn't she date me instead? She would just smile at that and change the subject. I achieved high scores on the SATs and got into every university I applied to. But I decided to attend the nearby state university to save money by living at home. With scholarships, financial aid, and part-time jobs, I was able to pay for everything myself without burdening my mom my father had left us when I was only 3. And I had some extra money for personal expenses. Without Shelly to long for and wait around for, I dated several girls in college and had one long-term relationship that lasted 10 months. Thinking back on those relationships, I had a major realization. I had experiences with 4 girls before Shelly, and 3 out of the 4 were much more fulfilling than with Shelly. I decided to continue my education at the same university to pursue my MBA. It was the second highest ranked MBA program in the state, so I didn't miss out much by not attending a school further away. In my second and final year of the MBA program, Shelly showed up at my door once again, but this time on her own. I asked her inside and we talked for a few minutes, reminiscing about our past and discussing what we've been up to since graduating high school. She had kept tabs on me through mutual friends and was aware of the university I was attending in my enrollment in their MBA program. We planned a date for that Friday night, which led to more follow-up dates. We got engaged 7 months later and got married a half a year after that. Another thing I realized was the difference in our intellectual connection. Shelly didn't have the same level of curiosity or interest in intellectual pursuits. She was content with being average and not pushing herself academically. While my college friends pursued professional careers, she found their conversations dull. She believed we only talked about those things to feel important. So we mostly hung out with her friends who didn't engage in meaningful conversations. Once again, I was the one making compromises. I went from discussing politics and ideas with my friends to following sports, which I had no interest in, so that I could hold a conversation with her girlfriends, boyfriends, and husbands. We would joke around, listen to the girls gossip about this or that person, and grown men talk about who chased, shot, or hit a ball better. But I accepted her the way she was and ignored the many things she had lacking. Meanwhile, she belittled me and my friends because we talked about things that she couldn't begin to understand or participate in. She always thought she was a strong woman, and she had me believing it as well. She wasn't a strong woman. She was just stubborn and selfish. But she was a genius in one capacity. She was a master manipulator. Like an exceptionally gifted person, Shelley was a savant when it came to manipulation. It took me about 2 decades to finally see past Shelley's exterior and extrovert personality. I was finally seeing her and our relationship for what it truly was. I had been sleepwalking through our relationship for more than a decade. I had wanted her for so long, starting at a very impressionable age, that when I finally got her, I never questioned if she was the person I truly should be with. I had been true to the teenage Danny to the detriment of the adult Daniel. Another thing I realized was that my dream had always been to have my own business, but Shelley had always dismissed that idea. After graduating with my MBA and passing my CPA test to get my designation, I had gone to work for a medium-sized CPA firm with the idea that I would be there for 2 or 3 years and then eventually establish my own firm. But Shelley was always against that. She said I was making good money. Why risk it? That to have my own practice, I didn't just need to be good with numbers, but that I had to be a good communicator and a people person as well. That I didn't have that in me. So I listened to her and I stayed at the same job. I was making close to $150,000 a year, but mostly I was making the firm richer. This was an area I wanted to change as well. Being someone who thought in numbers, I came up with the 955% rule. Basically, I was part of the 95%. My personality was average, but it fit nicely with about 90 to 95% of the people out there. Shelley and Tom, on the other hand, were outliers. Shelley couldn't be satisfied with the 90% of the people out there, and I bet most people wouldn't want to be with Tom regularly, if at all. Their choice of partners was fairly limited. If Shelley wanted to attract the ideal partner, she had to first find that great partner. Her preferences wouldn't be met by just anyone. So, that requirement alone limited her choices down to 5 to 10% of the population at best. Then she had to find someone who met all her other criteria like kindness, financial stability, compatibility, attractiveness, etc. Her potential long-term partner pool consisted at best of 1 or 2% of the population. On the other hand, if I wanted to start with a compatible partner, I had my choice of a good 90 to 95% of the population to choose from. I could focus on all the right qualities first and avoid getting involved with someone who wasn't a good match. Pat was wrong. I wasn't the one with limited choices. Shelley was. Done with my thinking of how I got to where I was, I needed to think about what I wanted for my future. The 1-year plan, I was going to spend this coming year making a complete change of the path my life was on. I was going to pursue my dream of establishing my own firm, and Shelley was going to help finance the startup. I was going to use our savings to get it going, and I was going to get Shelley to start working full-time to pay most, if not all, of the household bills. She had taken advantage of me financially in my past. I was going to get her to finance my future. And the last part was that I needed my revenge. Those two had gone out of their way to hurt me. When they were caught, instead of being remorseful and apologetic, they went on the offensive, attacking me. They insulted my height and stature, which were inherent traits I couldn't do anything about. And then they went after my self-worth as a person. I wasn't going to do anything illegal or risk the future I was planning to get my revenge, but I wasn't going to let them get away with it either. My plans of revenge for Shelley were giving her hope of reconciliation and convincing her to support my future. I was also going to find a way to put some distance between those two and end their relationship. When I was ready to move on, I would leave her alone and in a difficult situation financially. At the time, the best I could come up with for him was to find a way to make him feel bad about himself and his self-worth like he had tried to do to me. We all have our vulnerabilities, and I thought I figured his out. His were his lack of intellect, education, and income. Also, he seemed to want a commitment in life with Shelley, and she only wanted his companionship. I bet she wasn't the first person he wanted a long-term relationship with, who saw him as less than an ideal partner, just a friend. We all long for and envy what we can't have. I've known people like Tom. To make themselves get noticed, they hit the gym, not to stay in shape, but to gain attention so people will take them seriously because they never had that in their lives. People had been taking me seriously since I was a kid because I was usually one of the smartest kids in class, and later one of the smartest people in almost any room. I was going to bring Tom down to size and hit at his vulnerabilities where they hurt him the most. Coming back to Shelley implementing my one-year plan, the first thing I needed to do was get fired. When a couple of weeks of calling in sick or showing up to work seemingly out of it didn't do the trick, I went into my boss's office expressing my frustrations about how things were being handled at the firm. You may think that was a negative thing for me to have done, but I felt justified in that I was standing up for what I believed in. On a bright and sunny early November Saturday morning in Southern California, I walked into my home with my suitcase in hand. The noise I made coming in must have gotten their attention, because Shelley and Tom burst out of the kitchen into the living room to see me walk in and plant my suitcase down in the entryway. Shelley's concerned face turned to a mischievous smile when she saw me. Tom's, however, turned to a frown. "Honey, I'm back," I told Shelley in an exaggerated tone. Tom didn't seem too pleased to see me. "What makes you think you can just walk back in here?" "You don't live here anymore." "I do. You abandoned her and left her all alone. She's with me now and only me. There's no room for you. So grab your stuff and leave." Well, they say life doesn't always go as planned. So much for my one-year plan. Shelley turned to Tom. "Tawny, calm down. This is still Danny's house." She then turned to me. "So you finally got over your anger and are ready to come crawling back, huh?" I gave her a big smile. "Yes, Ma, I am. I'm moving back home." "So I guess that means you need to move Tommy out." Tom started to move towards me, but Shelley put her arms around his waist and held him back. "Danny, Tom lives here now and isn't going anywhere. This is all your fault. If you didn't abandon me and not answer any of my calls or texts, I would have given you more time to get your head around all of this and accept things. But no, you had to act immature. Tom lives here now, and he's in the master bedroom. So you need to put your stuff in the guest bedroom. That's the new reality now? Got it, Danny? This was going to be a lot harder than I thought. Could I do this? I thought I would just come back home and use Shelley to further myself and meanwhile find a way to get back at them. But could I live under the same roof with this person and have their unfaithfulness in my face every single day? Tom cut in my thoughts. "Shelley, we don't need him. You're working full-time now, and with my pay we'll be just fine. Tell him to go back to where he came from." "Tom, baby, just hold on. Okay, this could work out for the best for everybody here. Danny is like that prodigal son in the Bible that realizes the wrongs in his ways and comes back home ready to admit that he's sorry and that now he will be nice and obedient. His acting out changed everything. You're the man of the house. Now, baby. And especially you're my main man when it comes to the bedroom, and don't you forget that. We need to be bigger than Danny and welcome him in. Even though he doesn't really deserve it." Wow, I thought to myself. I was the prodigal son. I was the one to be taken back into my own home that I had paid for. Tom being so against me moving back made me want to stay just to spite him. Plus, my staying here was obviously going to put a strain on their relationship. If I walked out now, there would be no coming back and everything I've been planning for my future would go out the window. So, I decided to stay. I would decide later if I should change my plans and start over again. "Okay, I understand. I'll move my stuff to the guest room. I have the rest of my stuff in the car." Shelley smiled at my agreement. Tom gave me a disapproving look. "Well, you can't please everybody." "It's not me, honey. It's you." Tom had a strange work schedule. He would work 3-4 p.m. to midnight shifts and 2 regular 9 to 5. I was out the door usually by 8 in the morning and going to coffee shops or the library to work on my business plan. And while I had no intention of working for anyone else ever again, I had applied for unemployment benefits, so I was sending out resumes to potential employers to satisfy the unemployment office. That way they would keep sending me my monthly $1,200 check. For the most part, one was doing my best to be out of the house as much as possible when Tom was around. On the Wednesday of the second week, Tom was working the night shift, so I was home early. Shelley came into the kitchen and interrupted my dinner. She gave me a forced smile. "Danny, honey, when you're done, come to the living room. We need to talk." Pretty sure that she was ready to discuss our strange new arrangement. I took my time finishing my sandwich, grabbed the soda I had been drinking, and made my way into the living room. "Okay, Shelley, what did you want to talk about?" "There's actually a few things we need to talk about. First, I know this new arrangement is tough on you, but I want to say that you've been really, really good under the circumstances. Believe it or not, you're actually handling this much better than Tom. He's having a real hard time with it, but I'm working on him. She got a big smile on her face. I know you must be really lonely and really frustrated, but believe me, I'm working on Tom to allow me to give you a little comfort now and again. I don't think he'll bend to where he'll be okay with you hugging me, but I think I can get him to come around to letting you hold hands. He doesn't like to do it, and honestly, he's terrible at it when he does. Again, I couldn't help but wonder if this woman had always been this self-centered and insane and I had missed it, or was it a more recent development? My presence isn't too much, honey. Your affectionate nature is just lacking. You have trouble showing love and care. You need more warmth, Shelley. Shelley gave me an incredulous look. What did you say? I said you have trouble showing love and care, honey. That's why you need more practice in expressing affection. Because you have trouble showing it. My presence fit just fine with every other person I've been around before you, and it will fit just fine with all the people I'm going to interact with from this point forward. You don't need to bother working on Tom. I want to be around people who are warm and affectionate. I don't want your cold presence anymore. Forget you, Danny. I don't have any trouble expressing my feelings. You have trouble connecting. You're the problem, not me. Don't you dare try to turn this around on me, little man. You're just jealous because you don't get to spend time with me anymore, and you're being mean. You can take your hand and shove it up your sleeve, Shelley. Forget you, Danny. Every time I try to be kind to you, you do something to anger me. With that, Shelley got up from the couch and started storming out of the room, but then turned back. And you better start having your paychecks deposited into the joint account, little man. You missed the end of last month, but I'm willing to let that one go, but the next one better be there at the end of this month. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Shelley. I got let go. You see, I was depressed, drinking every day and kept on missing work and calling in sick, and I got let go. Mr. Thompson let you go after 10 years working there. Just go back and apologize and tell him it won't happen again and get your job back. No can do, Shelley. I was really angry, you know, because of how my dear wife was treating me, and I said hurtful things about his kids and called his wife mean names. There isn't a chance in a million he'll take me back. What are you going to do? You have to find a job. You can't just live here without paying your way, Danny. We're not going to just support you, you know. Why not? I supported you for 12 years when you didn't contribute a cent to the house. Why can't you support me until I get another job? You're working full-time and Tommy is working. Why can't you guys pay the bills until I get a job? I'm sending out a bunch of resumes every day, and I'm sure I'll be able to get something soon. You just need to be patient for a bit. That's all. Shelley was a spender. So for almost our entire marriage, I moved some money into investments every month. I had kept this from her so that we'll have some fallback money and to save for our future. There was a little over $100, but 000 invested in stock mutual funds. They've done really well in the post-Great Recession years. Shelley had no clue about that money, which was a good thing because that and the home equity loan I had gotten was going to pay for starting up my new firm. You need to get a job soon, Danny. Look, I care about you and I can be understanding for a little while, okay? But Tom isn't going to like this one bit. He's going to want to kick you out. So, you need to get a job very soon. You get that, Danny? I'll keep it from him for now, but I won't be able to do that for too long. I don't feel good about lying to him like that. I can put in extra hours at work, so I'll do that. But you can't just be lazy and hang around the house all day long. You need to get a job as soon as possible. This woman has no self-awareness. Doesn't she realize that she just admitted that she's been lazy all these years working a part-time job and not contributing a penny towards any of the household bills? Shelley, every day I send out a dozen resumes, and you see me leave every morning all dressed up because I go knocking on doors. I was actually doing it to buy me some time before she realized I wasn't working. But oh well. I'll get something soon. You guys just need to be a bit patient with me, okay? Okay? Just get it done. You made such a mess out of everything, Danny. I hope you can see that. If you hadn't gotten upset, you'd still be in the master bedroom, and you'd be spending time together. Instead, Tom is in there, and you're all alone finding comfort in yourself. And you got yourself let go from a good job. I kept telling you to not let your emotions hurt us, but you had to go ahead and mess everything up, didn't you? You couldn't be strong like me and handle things. You've always been weak, Danny. That's been your problem. You're too weak. You're not strong, Shelley. You're just stubborn and self-centered. There is a big difference. What did you say? You always say that you're a strong person. You're not strong, Shelley. You're just selfish and stubborn. That doesn't make you a strong person. You give up easily on anything that's a little difficult. You couldn't even finish one semester in community college. Then you had all these careers you wanted to try. You remember fashion designer, paralegal? The longest you made it pursuing your dream job was 3 weeks. You're a quitter, Shelley. You've just always had your daddy, and then me to rescue you. But you've convinced yourself that you're this strong person doing it all on your own. Here you roar. You're a quitter, Shelley. You're one of the weakest people I know. And that's what you did to our marriage. You quit on it. Instead of trying to work with me with what you thought was missing, you took the easy road and went looking for it elsewhere. Shelley stomped to her bedroom and slammed the door. She obviously wasn't liking the direction our conversation was taking. And once again, she took the easy way out and ran away. My new normal after this confrontation with Shelley, there was a sort of understanding between us. She no longer tried to offer me any gestures of affection, and I did my best but didn't always succeed to hide my dislike for her. For the most part, we treated each other as roommates. My goal was to trample on both of my enemies' self-esteem, like they've tried to do to mine. This was the best I could come up with until I found a better form of revenge. With Shelley, it was attacking her vanity and her self-image. She had deluded herself into thinking that she was a strong, accomplished woman. So I tried to remind her as often as I could that she had relied on her father's income and then her husband's support. She hadn't achieved anything in her life by herself. With Tom, I had to fight an uneven battle. No matter how hard I trained, I knew I would never grow taller or get as physically strong as him. The same went for my confidence and, according to Shelley, my charm. But I knew Tom had his flaws too. He lacked intelligence and education. No one took him seriously, not even Shelley. I would often find her seeking my advice on work problems, completely disregarding Tom's input. It was clear that she didn't value his opinion. One evening, the three of us sat down for dinner. Shelley continued to direct most of her attention towards me, which visibly bothered Tom. She even asked me about potential job opportunities. Just yesterday, I had my second interview with this company downtown. The interviewer practically promised me the job. When I inquired about the salary, he mentioned it would be $120,000. I wasn't really impressed, so he told me that it was just the base pay, and there would be bonuses on top of that. I thanked him for the offer, but mentioned that I would think about it. I used to make $150,000 a year. I'm not willing to settle for $120,000. And honestly, I believe I was underpaid at $150,000. I would need at least a $150,000 base salary, along with a strong bonus structure, to even consider it. While I spoke, I maintained eye contact with Shelley, but I noticed Tom fuming out of the corner of my eye. He probably made around $30,000 or $35,000 a year at best. It must have infuriated him to see me casually dismiss a $120,000 base salary. But that was my intention to get under his skin. But as fate would have it, Shelley unexpectedly took my side. "Honey, are you sure you don't want to consider $120,000? That's a good base salary, and like they mentioned, there will be bonuses. Besides, they'll recognize your true worth pretty quickly and give you a raise. Baby, Tom and I barely earn half of that base salary put together. Danny, I haven't bought any new clothes or shoes in months, and we haven't been to a nice restaurant in ages. I need you to find a good job and start taking me out again, baby." Tom looked like he was about to explode. Internally, I was giving myself a mental high five, but externally, I acted nonchalant and contemplative. "Why haven't you been buying new shoes and clothes, Shelley? And why hasn't Tom been taking you to nice places?" Shelley burst out laughing at my question. "Danny, I don't want to go to fast food restaurants. I want to go to nice places like we used to." Tom pushed his chair backwards and abruptly stood up, the chair falling to the ground. Finally realizing her thoughtlessness, Shelley grabbed Tom's right hand with her left. "Tom, baby, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it like that." I couldn't help but burst into laughter. They both turned to look at me, and I smirked back at them. Score one for me. Tom pulled his hand away from Shelley's grasp and lunged towards me, but this time Shelley grabbed his left hand with her right and started pulling him towards the living room. "Tom, baby, let's go upstairs and play a game. Danny is just jealous because he doesn't get to spend time with me anymore. He's just trying to cause trouble, baby. Let's go upstairs and play with me like Danny never could." As they walked away, Shelley glanced over her shoulder with a condescending smirk. I simply shrugged my shoulders and flashed her a thumbs up sign. That caught her off guard. "Hey guys, I'm truly sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. Look, to make it up to you, I think I saw a coupon for McDonald's somewhere. I'll find it for you, okay? I laughed heartily. Tom attempted to break free from Shelley's hand, but this time she held onto his upper arm tightly. Let's go, baby. Ignore him. He's just jealous because he can't compete. Let's go upstairs so you can show me how much you care. And with that, she led him away. My mother was one of the wisest and most respected people I knew. She never had the opportunity to get a formal education since she got pregnant with me during her junior year of high school. Throughout my upbringing, she worked low-level office jobs during the day and waitressed in the evenings to support the two of us. I never held Shelley's lack of education or her job against her. It never even crossed my mind. If I had met Tom in different circumstances, I wouldn't have judged him based on his job. I would have simply assessed his character. But this was war. I had to exploit any vulnerability I could find in them. A few weeks later, Shelley surprised me once again. Tom was at work, and Shelley and I were having dinner together. As I got up to take my plate to the sink, Shelley asked, "Honey, can we talk? I have an idea that I think you'll like." I responded cautiously, "Okay." "Honey, I think we've been approaching this all wrong. It's mostly my fault. I should have communicated better with you." At first, I thought she must have stumbled upon some psychology article or a TV show. Secondly, it was remarkable that she believed our problems were due to her lack of communication with me and not her involvement with Tom in secret. Doris understood that her friend was living in a dream world, but trying to make her see the reality of the situation would be futile. "Sure, honey, I'm sure he will." Shelley smiled at Doris' assurance. That's why Doris was her best friend. She understood her and was always there for her. Why didn't you fight for me? A couple more months passed, and our decision didn't bring us closer, as those articles claimed. Shelley and I were now like roommates, living in the same house but separately in our own bedrooms. Shelley seemed even more stressed these days, despite the great sex she boasted of. She had to juggle which bills to pay and which ones to delay, given our limited incomes. It used to be my responsibility, and now she couldn't ignore the real world like a carefree butterfly. On my end, I was receiving around $1,200 per month from unemployment insurance, which they didn't know about. It lasted for the first 6 months and was about to run out. It covered my expenses for weekly dates and basic necessities. The savings and home equity loan Shelley had threatened to take were funding my future. I reached out to my old clients and many decided to stick with me. I had been busy doing their taxes and managing their books. I would soon need to hire an assistant. I've been doing their work pro bono for now to avoid showing any profits. I also started going to the gym, and while I initially dated women who were rated as a 4 or 5, I now focused on dating mostly 7s. It might not be nice to think of women as numbers, but it's how my mind works. On Friday night, I had a date with Simone, a divorced woman I met online. She was 5'A", blonde, curvy, and had a very cute face. It was our 4th date, and we had gone out to dinner and dancing. I decided to invite her back to my place. It was the first time I brought a woman home. I hadn't invited any women over before because I didn't want to bring someone who wasn't as attractive and risk upsetting my roommates. Plus, I didn't want the complications that would arise from having someone over. But with Simone, I felt like she would be in my life for a while, and Shelley would definitely see her as competition. The next morning, Simone and I went down to the kitchen to get some coffee and a hearty breakfast. Shelley and Tom were already there, having their own breakfast. Fortunately, they were both wearing bathrobes. Shelley looked shocked to see Simone, while Tom smiled and appreciated her appearance. It was time for introductions. "Simone, this is my future ex-wife, Shelley, and that jerk with the smirk, checking you out, is Tom." That wiped the smirk off of Tom's face, but he got it back when Shelley said, "Danny, how cute. You found a little friend to hang out with. How much are you paying her to hang out with you?" Okay, so maybe they weren't exactly getting along. Maybe they were just being hostile. Simone looked obviously uncomfortable, so I decided to let it go. I had already talked about my marriage situation, so she wasn't walking unprepared into a difficult situation. But there was no reason to get her involved in my complicated situation. Shelley did not feel the need to be welcoming to my guest or take the high road. With anger in her voice, Shelley was upset. "You do know that he's a married man, right?" I put my arm around Simone's waist and smiled down at her. "Not for very long, Simone. You're not getting a divorce, little man. That isn't happening, so get that out of your head." Got it. I guess a peaceful Saturday breakfast wasn't in the cards. This wasn't exactly what I had planned. I had enough money and the business was starting to do well enough to support itself and pay me a small wage, but I still wanted them to support me for a few more months. More importantly, I hadn't broken them up or achieved my revenge on them yet. However, I also couldn't ignore what was happening. Plus, with Shelley emotionally unstable, I wanted to see if I could get a reaction from Tom. "Shelley, what's wrong with you? Tom has given every indication that he wants to marry you. You and I are over. Why aren't you divorcing me and finding happiness with him?" "Because I've told you 1,000 times I don't want him that way. He's good for hanging out, but that's it. You're my husband. You're the one I love, and you're the only one I want to be married to. And you're the one I'm going to stay married to. Why can't you understand that already?" Tom's smirk was now completely gone. He was angry. I had hit a nerve with him again. He was uneducated and had a mediocre mind at best. People didn't think highly of his economic worth, and the woman he loved and wanted didn't see much value in him outside of his friendship. He happened to be a big guy, but deep down people saw him as unimportant, and he knew it. We all want the people in our lives to value us above everyone else. Since catching Tom with Shelley that afternoon, I needed her to confirm my value as an important person. But she didn't. Tom needed Shelley to value him in every other way, but she didn't. With a smile on my face for a change, I turned to Tom. "How does it feel to be just a friend and nothing else?" Seeing the look on Tom's face, I realized that this time I had likely gone too far. Tom was already angry, and he charged at me. I instinctively took a step back, pulling Simone back with me. Tom and I stared at each other. I had no chance in a physical confrontation with him, but instead of coming directly at me, Tom decided on a different tactic. He looked away from me to Simone and gave her a worrisome smile. Tom punched at me. I managed to land a few punches on his stomach, but they were too weak to make an impact. After a strong punch to the side of my face, I fell to the ground. I grabbed onto his leg and yelled out, "Run, Simone, run." Everything seemed to happen in slow motion after that. Tom turned towards me, looking down, and pulled his leg back to kick me in the face. Instinctively, I closed my eyes, waiting for the inevitable. The next time I opened my eyes, I was in a strange room lying on a bed. Looking around, I realized that I must be in a hospital room. Simone was sitting in a chair to my left, looking down at her phone. I asked her with concern, "Simone, are you okay?" Simone looked up, and a big smile appeared on her face. She stood up and held my hand. "Hi, baby." "Yes, I'm good. How are you feeling, sweetie?" "I'm feeling like I was put through a meat grinder." "What happened? Please tell me that you got away, that he didn't do anything to you." "Nothing happened to me, sweetie." Shelley hit him on the head with a green vase that she grabbed off the mantel. "He still managed to kick you, but it wasn't with full force since she hit him at the same time. He fell down and passed out." Shelley went crazy. She was yelling at him hysterically, kicking him in the face over and over. By the time I managed to stop her, his whole face was covered in blood. "You were knocked out too, sweetie. The ambulances came and brought both of you here. We've been here by your side." Shelley's in the hallway talking to a detective. What a mess. Simone's concerned face turned mischievous. "You can say that again. Are all my dates with you going to end up like this?" That made me laugh, but it hurt my side. Tom must have really hurt my ribs with his punches. No, just every fourth date. A few minutes later, Shelley walked in. She and Simone exchanged a look. Simone let go of my hand and said she would go grab some coffee and be back soon. After Simone left, Shelley took her place standing to my left. She reached out hesitantly to hold my hand. I started to pull it back, but I stopped and let her hold it. "Danny, I'm so sorry. I never thought anything like that would ever happen." "Really, Shelley? You thought you could have your friend and husband living under the same roof, and you never thought things could get messy? How many times did you have to stop him from coming after me in the last 6 months?" Shelley looked away, conveniently avoiding my question, and then looked back at me. "Danny, when you were on the ground holding his leg, it all came back to me. You did the same exact thing for me. You saved my life. And now you were doing it for another woman. What have I done, Danny? How could I mess up so badly? How could I treat you so poorly these last few months? You saved my life and did everything you could to make me happy. And how did I repay you? By hurting you and trying to force something upon you. What is wrong with me?" I didn't say anything for a while. What was there to say? For the first time, she was reflecting on her actions. But when she continued to stare at me like I had all the answers, I finally gave voice to my thoughts. "You're starting to realize what you've done, Shelley. There isn't anything new I could say to you that I haven't said already. The problem is, Shelley, you didn't respect me. You respected the popular, big guys. They were the ones worthy of respect. I was just the smaller guy. In your eyes, I never deserved your respect as a person. That's why you could do all these things. You would have never treated me this way if you respected me. How can you say that I never respected you, Danny? You saved my life. You fought against a bigger guy when you were just a boy. You risked everything for a girl you barely knew. Even after he had beaten you, you didn't give up and you did everything you could to save me. You're the smartest person I know. You provide for us. I always respected you, Danny, always. I just forgot, that's all, and that's going to change. No, you didn't, Shelley. To you, I was still the weak, short kid. The one who wasn't as strong or tall as your dad or the other guys. You saw what I did that day as a lucky accident. Did you see me as someone worth dating after that? No, you still went after all the popular athletes. The big guys. You saw them as real men. You saw me as just a friend, no different than one of your girlfriends. You're wrong, Danny. You have a brave heart. Not only did you save me, but you stood up to a guy much bigger than you to protect Simone. Yeah, and my wife had to save me from that too. Don't say that, Danny. You weren't supposed to win against that jerk that day, and you weren't supposed to win against Tom either. They're both much bigger than you, but what matters is that when it mattered the most, you risked everything to keep us safe. The last thing you are, Danny, is weak. The problem is, Shelley, that maybe, just maybe you think that now, or maybe you're just saying it, but all this time you didn't think that. Anyway, power can change people, and complete power can change them completely. What are you talking about, Danny? Look, I take some of the blame. You saw me as a friend, not as a man, and I let myself believe it. I was young and naive, and the girl I wanted more than anyone was telling me in every way that she didn't see me as the right guy for her. But these popular athletes that you couldn't get enough of, you never said those exact words, Danny. I don't see you as a man, but I see these other guys as men. But everything you did made it clear. The problem is, I believed it too. When I went to college, everything changed for me. Women treated me differently. Maybe they didn't desire me like you desire, Tom, but they still valued me. They respected me for who I was. And then, my dream girl, who had always seemed unattainable, one day came knocking on my door. Suddenly, she wanted me. And after we started dating and you agreed to marry me, I always let you get away with everything. I was just grateful that you finally wanted me. Like you were finally recognizing me as a man. I was too passive. I should have stood up for myself a long time ago. It's one thing that you cheated, but the way you did it and then flaunted it in front of me, expecting me to accept everything and be okay with you fooling around, that showed that you had no respect for me as a man, as a person, so I take some of the blame. You were selfish and corrupt to begin with. But my mistake was not standing up for myself and letting you mistreat me. So I admit my mistakes, but that doesn't excuse everything that you did. The blame is still mostly on you, Shelley. However, my lesson is to never allow anyone to treat me that way again. Shelley listened quietly for a few minutes, taking in everything I said. You're right, Danny. We both messed up. Now, we can work together to fix things. Maybe we should consider getting some counseling. I shook my head and chuckled. You really are something, Shelley. No, I'm the one who messed up. When I think about how my life has turned into a mess, I wanted to see if there was anything I could have done differently. If there was something I had control over that could have prevented this situation from happening again. What I should have done is be honest with myself about the kind of person you were, and never married you. And if I did marry you, I should have never let you mistreat me and get away with it. So, admitting my mistakes doesn't take away from the fact that it's 100% your fault, to Shelley. My lesson is to never give someone that much power over me again. With tears streaming down her face, Shelley nodded and we both fell silent. Shelley mumbled something softly, but I couldn't hear her clearly. I didn't catch that, Shelley. What did you say? You fought for her, Danny. Why didn't you fight for me? Fight for you? Are you serious, Shelley? What was there to fight for? Did Tom force you into a relationship? No, you willingly got involved with him. What would I be fighting for? I don't mean fight for me in that way. I mean, why didn't you fight for me to come back to you? To win me back from him? God, Shelley, you can't be that delusional. What was there to win you back from? You were my wife. We were supposed to be a team. You weren't some prize to be fought over by two men. I shouldn't have had to fight for you. You're the one who messed up by cheating on me. You're the one who should have been fighting to win me back, not the other way around. What is wrong with you? Tears continued to flow down Shelley's face. "You're right, Danny. You're right about everything. The more you gave, the more I took, and the more I thought I deserved. And you're right. It's my job to fight for you, to win you back. And I'm going to win you back, mister." Shelley said this with a hopeful smile, despite her teary face. "No, Shelley. That ship has sailed. We need to put this behind us, move on, and start over. I'm going to win you back, Danny. You have to give me one more chance. Please. I can't live without you, baby." This was the first real conversation Shelley and I had since everything happened, and I finally had the opportunity to express my feelings. However, all the emotions and talking drained my energy. I decided to change the subject. With a chuckle, I said, "What? Simone told me you really messed up Tom's face." Shelley laughed nervously. "Yeah, I guess I lost control for a moment. It was a terrible situation, Danny. When he was attacking you, I was screaming for him to stop. And when you fell to the ground and grabbed his leg, and I saw him preparing to kick you in the face, everything clicked in my mind. In that moment, I felt everything rush back. I was so angry at Tom. I blamed him for everything. For the pain we caused you. For the pain I caused you. It was all my fault, but I took it out on Tom." Shelley wrapped her arms around herself, sobbing with her body shaking. Simone walked in and observed the scene. She looked at Shelley, then back at me. I shrugged, too exhausted to explain anything at that moment. "Danny, I need to leave. Shelley and I talked a lot while you were gone. It's clear that you two still have things to work through. So, I'm going to remove myself from the situation." I started to protest, but Simone held up her hand to stop me. "Danny, you're still living with her, still stuck in the middle. You both have unresolved issues and feelings for each other. At best, I would be a rebound for you, and I don't want that. I can't handle that, Danny. I'm sorry. I need to go." And just like that, Simone exited my life in a hurry. I had managed to make two women cry and walk away from me within minutes. I guess I was getting better at dealing with relationships. Isn't it ironic they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and I must have been well prepared for what happened. My goal was to create a rift between Shelley and Tom, to expose their faults and insecurities, just like they had done to me. In the end, that morning Tom attacked Simone and me because I had used Shelley to break him down mentally. He wanted to be with Simone to feel better about himself and hurt both me and Shelley in the process. But here's where luck played its part. If we overlook the fact that I got beaten up, 3 weeks later Tom left the hospital in handcuffs. Long story short, he was charged with assault and attempted rape. His lawyer made a deal with the prosecutor, dropping the attempted rape charge in exchange for a guilty plea to assault. He received a 2-year sentence as a result of his desperate attempt to salvage his self-image. Now, here's the irony. While Shelley was cheating on me and treating me poorly, her life seemed great. But when she finally did the right thing and defended her husband, she ended up with a sentence of 90 days for assault. Yes, Shelley ended up getting charged with assaulting Tom. Not for hitting him with the vase initially, but for repeatedly kicking him while he was unconscious on the ground. Since Shelley and Simone believed it was pure self-defense, they didn't mention the kicking part to the detective. However, it ended up in the detective's report, and the prosecutor had no choice but to charge Shelley with assault. It would have been even more ironic and satisfying if she had kicked him in the groin instead. But I wasn't that lucky. I wasn't going to get that fortunate. Both Shelley and Tom will now have a felony on their records. I wonder what kind of future Tom will have, finding a decent job with that on his record. 2 weeks to go after getting out of the hospital, Shelley and I went back to sharing our home, each of us in our respective bedrooms. Several times she tried to entice me back to the master bedroom without any success. Honestly, I wasn't sure that I could feel the same attraction towards her, even if I wanted to. With the case hanging over her head, I left Shelley alone about the divorce. But her attorney and the prosecutor had just agreed upon the previously mentioned plea deal, and in 2 weeks' time she would be reporting to jail to serve out her sentence. It was as good of a time as any for us to put an end to things. So I opened a bottle of wine and grabbed a couple of wine glasses and told Shelley, "Honey, we need to talk. Shelley, we should get ourselves all settled up before you have to go in, so that when you come out you can start your new life with a clean slate." I went into the den and retrieved the manila envelope with the divorce papers. I put them down in front of her. "In about an hour someone is going to come over to officially serve you for the records. But I thought we would do this quietly ourselves first. This sheet here gives me power of attorney to sell the house. I've talked to a real estate agent, and after paying closing costs, She thinks we can clear between 75 and 100,000. The market is good, so she thinks it will sell pretty quick. So the sale will likely close before you come out. If that happens, I'll put your half into your checking account. If not, we'll split it up after you get out. But hopefully when you come back out, you will have a healthy bank account to get you going. Your boss promised you that he'll keep your job open for you. And I'm still not working, so there won't be any financial support either way. The whole time I was talking, Shelley's eyes were fixated on the divorce papers. Danny, please, I don't want a divorce. When I started to cut her off, she held up her hand. Honey, please let me have my say, and I promise to let you say anything you want after that. I needed her cooperation to make this as simple and painless as possible. So, I nodded for her to continue. Baby, I was a selfish, ungrateful person. I was an awful partner, an awful human being. But I've learned my lesson. Danny, I was trying to have it all, but the whole time you're the one I didn't want to lose. Yes, I tried not to lose Tom too, but you're the one I really didn't want to lose. In the hospital, you told me I stopped Tom several times from coming at you. I never wanted him more than you, baby, never. And when it came down to it, I was ready to protect you from him. My head was all messed up, and I thought I could have everything exactly the way I wanted it, that I deserved it all, and somehow you'd be okay with it. And then when you weren't, I got stubborn and didn't want to give in. I wanted to get my way once again. Danny, you're my everything. You're my best friend. I can't imagine doing life without you, baby. And Danny, I've been doing some research. Shelley pulled forward in her chair and finished what she had to say with her shoulders slumped forward and her hands clasped tight together, almost as if in prayer. She looked desperate and completely lost. I'm sure she realized this was her final plea. For the first time, but I believed that she truly loved me. She truly wanted me above all else, that she cannot imagine her life without me, even more than when she had confronted Tom. She could have done that out of gratitude, or anger, or a sense of justice. But now she had a desperate look like she was a condemned woman making her last plea for leniency. The arrogant, stubborn, selfish woman was gone, and in her place was a lost individual wanting to be saved. Shelley, when I caught you and Tom all those months ago, I was hoping to hear something like this from you back then. Apologetic and showing remorse, telling me that you will do anything to make us work. That you wanted me over anyone else. That you truly want me. But the problem is that you didn't. In fact, you did the exact opposite. And that allowed me to see you and our relationship in a totally different light. It's like one of those pictures hidden in a puzzle kind of thing. I had been going through the motions with you for years. I had gone along marrying you without objectively looking at you or our relationship. I had desired you so much from the 7th grade. I considered you such a prize that when you finally wanted to be mine, my brain hid the true you and our true relationship behind that puzzle, behind a fog. But just like the puzzle, now that I've seen the true picture of you and our relationship. But we have a lot of other problems too, Shelley. We have different interests and priorities. The topics you care about and can discuss are so limited. Am I going to wait for years for you to grow and expand your horizons so that we can actually have a deeper connection and conversation? The problems we have, Shelley, are much more fundamental than our love life. They go into all areas of our lives. Your infidelity with Tom was a wake-up call for the both of us, Shelley. We were and are not a harmonious couple from the start. I just wish we realized that sooner and in a different way. But now that we have seen the hidden picture, Shelley, we cannot unsee it. If you have really learned from this experience and have changed, then with your next partner you will be a different person and can have a much more fulfilling relationship. Sometimes things are broken beyond repair. Shelley chose to ignore about half of the reasons I gave her for why we were not right for one another. Danny, but I know you're the one I want. I don't want the Toms out there, or any other person. I want you. Tom fulfilled one need, but he was pretty useless outside of that. I have my head on straight now, Danny. Please, you have to give us one more chance. Just one more, honey. She said the last with utter desperation. I'm sorry, Shelley. The problem is that now I have my head on straight as well. If you have truly learned your lesson and have changed and truly love me, then do what I need, baby. Let me go. Let me move on. Give me the one thing I want and need from you. My freedom. Around 1A. M. The morning Shelley was to report in to start serving her sentence, she knocked on my bedroom door. Obviously, I wasn't the only one unable to sleep. I opened it to a sobbing, almost hyperventilating Shelley, barely able to breathe. She held out to me the divorce papers that, I confirmed later, were signed and dated. Once I took them, she rushed away without saying a word. My instinct was to chase after her to offer comfort and make her feel better, but she wasn't mine to console anymore, and I needed to stop trying to rescue women. For the very first time, she needed to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. 20-year high school reunion. It was now 3 years later, and time for my 20-year high school reunion. My private practice had thrived over the last 3 years, to the point that I brought on 2 CPAs, 4 junior accountants, and 5 support staff. I went from making a decent living to now making a substantial income. I guess it was another thing Shelley was wrong about. I wasn't only good with numbers. I was a people person who could attract business, and I could manage a growing enterprise on my own. I realized shortly after I started dating that I wasn't going about it the right way. I was looking at it too unemotionally, categorizing women based on superficial factors and working my way up the scale. My main goal had been to try to prove my worth to myself and to Shelley. Yes, it did help initially going out with women that I had considered easier to salve my bruised ego. But I soon realized that I was still reacting to what Shelley and Tom had done to me, and that wasn't fair to the women I was dating. I had to approach it with an open mind and be fair to the women I dated. It wasn't their fault that I had picked a terrible person for a wife. They shouldn't have to suffer because of my ex's mistakes. I made myself more open and vulnerable, even though it was scary. But a little over a year after filing for divorce and dating several women, I met Amy. I met my second wife, Amy Nebo Dark, 2 years ago. There couldn't have been a bigger contrast than between my 2 wives. Shelley was 5'8" blonde and very attractive. Amy is 5, brunette with striking blue eyes, petite, and very pretty. Where Shelley showed off her sexuality, Amy exuded a classy sophistication. Where Shelley was loud, stubborn, selfish, and uneducated, Amy is sweet, kind, giving, and educated. She has a doctorate degree in one of my favorite subjects, history. She is a full professor at the same university I once attended. Amy and I are perfect for each other. We have a deep and easy connection, love, and closeness. After falling in love with Amy, I realized that what I had with Shelley wasn't true love. Not in the same meaningful way as what Amy and I have. I have also been able to reconnect with most of my friends over the last couple of years. Thanks to Shelley, I had lost touch with most of them, but now Amy fits perfectly with them and their partners. I get along well with her friends and their spouses too. We have an active social life, with a large group of friends from different backgrounds whom we both enjoy spending time with. At the reunion, we were talking in a small group of 3 couples, with 2 of my high school friends and their partners. Amy got my attention and nodded towards something to the right over my shoulder. As I looked, she said, "That woman has been staring at us ever since we arrived. One of your high school friends who still has feelings for you." There was Shelley. She had gained some weight, adding to her already curvy figure. I am ashamed to say that my first thought was to wonder if she had gained weight so that her body would match her personality better. Thankfully, I didn't say that out loud in front of my wife. Shelley didn't carry the weight well, and her clothes were too tight for her new body. "No, honey, that's my ex-wife. We went to high school together." Shelley never looked away or tried to hide the fact that she was staring at us. I smiled and nodded at her, and she gave me a sad, wistful smile in return. With that, I turned back to the group and tried to catch up with the ongoing conversation. About 2 hours into the reception, I was talking with my wife and a high school classmate I had lost touch with when someone tapped on my shoulder. I turned around and there was Shelley. The smile immediately vanished from my face. Even though I knew she was there, the moment I turned away from her earlier, I completely forgot about her. I forced a smile back on my face and looked over at my wife. "Honey, this is the cave." Like a well-trained soldier, Shelley made an impressive quick turn and walked away purposefully. I called after her, "Shelley, I'm sorry, ... I meant to say this is Shelley." Shelley raised her right fist above her shoulder, and then her middle finger popped out to gesture at me. I just looked at my bewildered, beautiful wife's face and shrugged. There really wasn't much to say anyway.